Welcome back. You're still with us on Startup Street. Let's go across to my colleague Ashmit Kumar, who has the MeitY secretary with him to talk about the latest draft online gaming rules and more.
Right, Arundhati, thanks a lot for that. Joining me now is with us Mr. S. Krishnan, Secretary of Ministry of Electronics and IT. Mr. Krishnan, thank you so much for joining us, being a part of this conversation. You've given us two big headlines in the scope of just 24 hours. First, we had the ECMS, a stellar response to that. Investment proposals worth 1.15 lakh crore rupees. Then later, last evening, we also had the draft rules coming out for online gaming. A lot of questions that need answering. I'll come to you first on the issue of online gaming. I just want to get a sense. We saw a rapid pace with which it went through the parliament, and since then, at least from what the language of the draft rule is, that it is yet to be notified, the government is consulting all the stakeholders, there seems to be an intent towards staggered implementation. Can you help us understand that?
No, I don't think it's right to say that there should be staggered implementation. I think the intent of the government is very clear, and that has been expressed in the form of the legislation that got passed. Now, legislation goes through Parliament at a rapid pace, and that depends on the parliamentary schedule and so on. And we've brought out the rules also in fairly quick time. And based on the industry requests and demands, because we have been meeting industry post the legislation being passed and looking to see what their concerns are. Most of them, I think practically the entire industry, has accepted the spirit of the legislation and stopped offering many of the online money games as defined in the Act. Now, the question is, in the rules, we have certain processes which have been prescribed and procedures which have been prescribed. So we want to give industry enough time to respond to what has been said there. And the rules themselves are not very complicated, fairly straightforward. One aspect which I'd like to highlight is that the registration of an online social game is voluntary. It is not obligatory for somebody who's offering an online social game to register that particular game. What this implies is that any small game which somebody is innovating, putting together, offering, or something which is purely educational, none of those which clearly fit the definition of the online social game as per the Act has to be registered.
Sure.
They can choose not to register it. They're confident that they are not going to be called into question and they can defend their position that they are a legitimate game. They don't have to offer themselves for registration. Sure. This is, in my view, a major ease of doing business measure and should really enthuse innovators and startups. I think that is an important point that I would like to make. The second point is that there is a prescribed process by which the online money games, there's a determination of what is an online money game or a social game or an e-sport. There's a process which has been prescribed. We want to get the entire process started quickly. So rather than trying to set up an entire new board and the usual teething troubles and the usual starting trouble that we have with a new organization being established, to avoid a lot of that, the organization has been kept lean. It has been kept something which can be up and running from day one, and that is how it has been structured.
And it's digital from what the language of
the entire thing is digital. And for that also we are ready, and we can sort of launch it at the earliest.
So that's a very important clarification that you helped us with, that in terms of registration, esports is mandatory, social gaming is not. Social gaming, say for instance, a startup is providing a game of, say, Sudoku online, that is not required to be registered under the draft rules that have been provided.
As long as they fulfill the definition of a social game under the Act, and they are confident that they do not constitute either an online money game or an e-sport, they're good to go.
Just diving into the specifics, Rule 24 was an interesting addition. There were some concerns that the industry had raised in terms of repatriating the money back to the users.
That's right.
Was there a need felt? Did you get the feedback from the industry, from banks, that perhaps this clarification in law is required to help facilitate funds?
You see, I think it goes back to the philosophy of the Act itself. The Act does not intend to penalize players of online games. or online money games also for that matter. The intent is not to penalize them, and the intent is to treat them more as victims of a particular particular offense. And therefore, the intent thereafter is to make sure that they get back what they have put down. So that is the angle from which that provision has been made. So right from the beginning, the idea is that they should not be penalized. There was a concern that returning the money which has been collected as a deposit or in some other form may be difficult. And clarity needs to be provided to banks and other financial institutions that they can continue to return the money and they would not be falling foul of the provisions of the Act. So that is the clarity we have provided.
Rule 13, I think, will invite a lot of questions and answers, and I think that's where I think a lot of industry personnel will be looking at in terms of what exactly qualifies as online money gaming. I just want to understand, I just want to dive into some of the specifics. Rule 13 B and C, which broadly say that if a consideration is being paid by the user for joining or for playing the game, that is something that will qualify as money gaming. Does that bring into scope maybe subscription fee?
No, I think that's not the correct way to interpret this. I think the correct way to interpret is that there is a very clear definition of what is a money game in the Act.
Okay.
The rules, and particularly Rule 13, is only intended to further define the scope of what the authority will attempt to go into in order to determine whether it is a money game or a social game or an e-sport. So those are all the various elements that they need to go into.
Sure.
It does not necessarily say that if this is fulfilled, then you're a money game. No, I don't think you should look at the rule that way. You should look at the rule with reference to the definition of an online money game, which is contained in the Act.
Okay.
So these are all various subparts of that, and all of those requirements will need to be sort of fulfilled in order for something to fulfill the definition of an online money game.
But in spirit of reading it with the law, with the Parent Act, as well as the rules, do we have clarity now? Does the industry have clarity now in terms of maybe a reward system that is being offered or a subscription model that's being offered? Is that covered under the language of the
I think the subscription system is something which is clearly covered in the language of the Act. Now, the reward system is something we'll have to look at. I mean, what is it that they want to offer as a reward system, and what is the nature of the reward system? So that is something which will have to be looked at on a case-by-case basis. That is for the authority to look at.
You make a reference to the authority. You talked about how you want the authority to hit the ground running. The rules are very detailed in terms of prescribing the powers, the responsibilities that the authority enjoys. Just want to get a sense in terms of the implementation of this. How soon after the notification of the rules will we be expecting?
We can be ready the next day.
Okay.
Because all the officials are in place.
Correct.
It's basically officials. We have to get ready a digital system. We are working on it, and that should also be ready. So from the moment that we notify the implementation of the Act, we can be ready.
Was there perhaps a need felt that for also addressing the issue of offline overseas platforms which are providing these betting services, maybe giving more teeth to the platform, to the authority to target such instruments, such platforms that are operating here?
See, I mean, I think the authority is not necessarily the agency which will target that. You see, the authority is there to make a determination on whether something amounts to an online money game or not, whether something amounts to an online social game or not. The actual prosecution and the actual blocking and things is provided for in the Act itself, in which we can act on.
Just shifting focus now to the ECMS, there was a big, second big news that you'd given us, a stellar response. Before we dive into the specifics, given the overwhelming response that the industry has shown, which is 2x that of what you had initially intended, has the industry maybe successfully made a case for wanting to expand the scope even further as we go down the road?
We will see. I think as of now, we will have to sort of make sure that what has been promised gets implemented. So I think The scheme had a particular size, and the scheme, all of that was also something which was decided after we heard from industry fairly extensively. And it is, I would think that it's early days. It's too early, too premature to consider that.
You're in the process of vetting some of these proposals and applications that have come. The minister, as well as you, said that you'll be working at express pace. What is the timeline that we're looking at in terms of seeing the final approved
Let us see.
benefits?
I mean, again, it's, see, like the minister said yesterday, there is a technical team which looks at all this. So beyond the point, we should not put too much pressure on them to say that, I want it by so-and-so date. But
No.
I think everyone is in a rush. Industry also wants to get started quickly. The government, of course, wants it to move very fast. And the technical team is in place and they're working on it. So.
In the spirit of wanting to expand the ecosystem here in the country, how important will it be in cases where there are foreign companies also participating to have an element of transfer of technology to Indian partners so that we begin to design and develop here the local ecosystem?
That is, I think, embedded in the spirit of the scheme. And the scheme is basically intended, it is a step-by-step process. We start with assembly under the PLI schemes and then build scale there and then move to the next stage where we try to bring them into the process of manufacturing components, and especially the components which matter. So all of that, so it goes step by step, and design is again an important area, key area. And many of them, actually, I think even without incentives, without direct incentives on design, are coming into the country simply because India is one of the best countries in the world to design in, because there is enough STEM human resources available which can enable the design. That is one part of it. The other part of it is that in addition to the STEM human resources, we are building capacities to do this across the country. So I would think that it will naturally follow.
You've given us two big headlines, I keep repeating myself, only because we're eager to watch out for some of the other big news to come out of Ministry of Electronics and IT. DPDP rules, I think that is something that the industry, us journalists, we're all geared towards it. When can we expect it? You had indicated that perhaps last week of September is when we can expect it. When can do we see it over the weekend? Maybe next week is something that we need to plan for?
You see, I mean, to be very honest, I think what the minister said is, when will the ministry be done? And he set us a deadline saying you should get it out from the ministry by 28th of September. And we met that deadline. Now, it's gone for legal vetting and so on. So there's a process. Now, there again, I mean, these are things which the concerned ministry takes their time, and it wouldn't be very fair to hustle them and get them out. So I'm just hoping it'll come out as quickly as possible. If it comes out on the weekend, we'll put it out on the weekend.
We wish you the very best, Mr. Krishnan. Thank you so much for joining us, being a part of this conversation.